Oh man, what's really good, family? Let me know that you're in the building with me right now by simply hitting the like
Let me know
button.
that you're in the building with me,
Oh,
right?
yeah. So let me know that you're in the building just by simply hitting the like button straight away. And of course, just make some comments inside of the comment section. Just flood in, waiting for you guys just to quickly flood in and we can get this show on the road. Indeed. Yeah. I know. I promised you guys I'll be on at 36 minutes past, and I'm 3 minutes early at 10:33. So my timing's not too bad. I told you, babe. I told you. I already know how to time things. All right. What I need to do, if I'm gonna be, if I'm saying I'm 30 minutes, if I'm thinking I'm gonna be 30 minutes away, I add the extra 30 minutes. If I think I'm gonna be 15 minutes away, I'm gonna add an extra 15 minutes. If I think I'm gonna be an hour away, I add an extra 45 to an hour minutes. All right. So this is how we do it, because you already know we've been gifted, but we've also got a curse. All right. We've been gifted, but we've also got a curse. I've got to make sure I work not on the solar cycle, but I've also got to work on the analog digital cycle as well. Oh man. So yeah, today the show is entitled Should Britain Feel Shame for Its Racist Past? Okay. Or should we feel some sense of pride in our accomplishments of that which we have achieved? Or should we take the middle path, okay, and be able to critically analyze history and be able to give a fair appraisal of its pros, its cons, its good, its bads? Can we do that? All right, so we're going to open up this conversation in a little while. I'm just waiting for you guys to flood in. Oh man, Joe Brown, all the way from America, says, "Good afternoon from America." Yeah, buddy, that's beautiful. Pride, shame, embarrassment, and guilt are examples of society we live in today, says Nicholas. All right. So yeah, we're gonna get involved. What I'm gonna ask you guys to do is, okay, please just make sure you hit the share button and hit the like button to let everybody know that we're live right now. I know everybody is most probably waiting for us at 36 minutes past, but we are early and we definitely do want to kick off the show straight away. All right. So you guys are here, and you really know, family, if you want to get my attention, yeah, do exactly as Joe Brown has done by tagging Titans TV. And also, if you definitely double want to get my attention, just go to the super chat, hit the super chat button right there, and it's dependent upon your donation. So if it's £5, it goes green. £10 goes yellow, orange, red, purple, and so forth. It goes up to 100. It goes up to all the way to £500. Okay, but any whichever way you do it, I think if you do it for £100, it stays up for an hour. Your comment will be pinned up for an hour. £200, 2 hours, etc. That's kind of how it works. Okay, that's how I've been told it works. So yeah, don't feel ashamed to hit up the super chat button and let everybody know that you're here supporting Titans TV. And of course, if you've got a business that you would like to promote as well, like, do that. Hit the super chat button so we can discuss, we can talk about it, we can highlight it, we can let people know what you're up to in the community, and where they should be going to shop for the products that you're offering or services that you're offering as well. So yeah, let's try to do that. Let's give back to the community, baby. So today, as usual, I'm going through, I'm going through the news and seeing what's taking place in the world today. And I saw that we had Kehinde Andrews. He literally clashed. Yeah, he literally clashed with Piers Morgan on Good Morning Britain. Okay, and it was, whew, it was groundbreaking. It was like pandemonium, but in a very good way. All right, in a very good way. I'm going to show you the whole video. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep stopping and starting the video, all the way through, until we flood in with people that's tuned in right now and people who want to come on and actually discuss this topic. Okay, so we're going to discuss a lot of things today. Who's the question aimed at from the title? It's for everybody. It's for everybody. All right. I want everybody to come in and have a conversation. So what we're really going to do first and foremost, we're going to have a conversation with Piers Morgan and Kehinde Andrews. Their back and forth that they had. I want to try to stop at the relevant points and see if we can discuss what they spoke about. Then we're going to open up into a larger conversation. About white pride. I'm going to do quotation marks: white pride or white shame. Okay, so as English people, should we feel shame or pride for our national heroes, even though they may have certain faults that have come to light? okay, as British people. Okay, so I'm expanding it now into everybody who's in the UK. Should we feel pride, for British heroes that may be racist, may have outdated views, even in their times? Okay, should we admonish them based upon those views as well, or do we have a balanced appraisal of history and great figures of the past? So what I'm going to do right now, since we are sharing, and I am going to send you guys the link. Don't worry about that, okay? Just flood in a little bit. I'm going to get the link for you guys and share it. Not now, okay? I'm going to grab the link, but not now. And let me make sure that just in case if anybody comes in, they can't be seen, okay? So already I'm warning you guys, if you come in, you won't be seen. So don't complain to me. I've already said it, all right? So, all right, Piers Morgan jumps on everyone. I'm pretty sure he's paid to do that for the viewers. Yeah, I've seen him a few times literally jump in on different individuals. Okay, so let me go straight into the video and let's get it on.
Reassessing our greatest war heroes' legacy. Joining us now, broadcaster James Whale, who says Churchill should be celebrated as a great leader. But Professor Kehinde Andrews says people put Churchill on a pedestal, but history shows he's a racist. Now, why?
Why? I mean, the historical record here is clear. Even Boris Johnson admits that he was a racist. He was someone who believed that the white race was superior, the natives didn't have any right to their lands in the Americas, the Indians were a ghastly people, and just was a general imperialist racist.
Is there any way that we can say, because those were the views of their time, and the fact that he actually achieved something which saved, defended, protected our nation, means that we can separate those things out?
That's the Jimmy Savile defense, isn't it? It was just a bit different back in the day.
Actually, so likening Sir Winston Churchill to Jimmy Savile.
Well, let's make a better comparison. At the time, Leo Amery, the Secretary of India, not anti-racist, actually said that Churchill's views were so extreme on India, he couldn't separate them from Hitler's. And the truth is, Hitler was a great military leader, a product of his time, and if they won the war, we'd be having a discussion now.
Luckily, we can separate Sir Winston Churchill from Hitler. Because they went up against each other in the war.
Because Churchill won. The fact of the matter is that Churchill's views were so repugnant, and they actually led to 3 million people starving to death in Bengal because he was more interested in stockpiling rations for the war than saving starving Indians because he didn't believe there were
really people. Does it not matter to you one scintilla that Sir Winston Churchill almost single-handedly rallied this country into winning World War II against the Nazis and Adolf Hitler?
Okay, I'm going to just rewind that so when it comes back in again. So, you've heard the conversation so far, right? I'm going to stop it right there just for now, okay? Just for now. And I want to speak on those points raised, okay? Some of you guys, this might be something completely new to you. You're learning about Winston Churchill. Let me know if it is something brand new to you guys. But does this change your perspective on Winston Churchill? Should he still be celebrated with such views? Should he be celebrated even though he was the cause of 3 million I think Bengalis, he said, being starved? Okay, should he still be celebrated? Is he a hero or is he a villain? Or is there a nuance to this? Okay, I would love for you guys to jump in, talk to us, have your say, and I'm waiting for you guys to jump in right now. Okay, so I've sent the link. Let me just double check. I've sent the link to you guys. I want you guys to come in. I want to go to my bed very soon. So I need you guys to come in and have this discussion. I'm only going to be here, moderating and trying my very best not to say anything too controversial. But of course I shall be, just to stir the pot a little bit. Oh man. So let's see. We've got Sarah Garvey up in the building. Why is it having such a mad feedback though? That's crazy. All right, Sarah.
Peace, family.
Peace. So I want to know, okay, Winston Churchill, based upon what we've just heard and based upon what we know of him in history lessons and just generally what we found out, is he a villain or is he a hero?
One of my best subjects to talk on is the subject of objectivity and subjectivity. And it's really down to that. It's down to the way he's viewed by the person that he's viewed by. For me, Winston Churchill is a man who, as you said, killed people but also liberated people, right? So depending on which way you want to look at him, it all depends. I'm not gonna lie, like everyone has the right to uphold the people that they call heroes, right? But also everyone has a right to critique people that people call heroes. We do it all the time. I'm sure people can understand. I mean, we can use a child molesting, warmongering slave owner, right? That people may hold in high regard. Some people say he's divine from God. Other people say, no, you know what? His actions are not one of a man that deserves to be held up on a pedestal. So if we can hold men up on a pedestal who have done such acts, and then, it's, I said it's so subjective, Cal. I'm not gonna lie to you. It all depends on the person who's doing him. That's the most simplest way I can put it.
Well said, well said. Oh man. All right. So is it a matter of perception? Okay, is it a matter of perception? Let us know. Truth be told, for real, there is a lot of individuals, we hold up in high regard. We can't see no wrong with them. The sun literally shines outside of their back end. It's kind of like love, It's kind of like love. Like, you can never see, sometimes you will never see the fault in a human being that you're in love with. But the moment that you depart from them, they become the worst human being ever. All right, Jesna, talk to me, Queen.
Hello. About that point, I don't think personally there's anything wrong with nationalism and them being proud of where you're from, but it's just, I don't want to like go off topic, but like us as people, like people in the UK, were like misinformed about the history of the Western world and World War II and what actually happened and whatnot. And they talk about Winston Churchill, about how much of a great mind he was and whatnot, and not realizing actually behind the scenes what they actually portray in the history books that we learn at school isn't quite straightforward. So my point is that with Winston Churchill, I don't think he was that much of a liberator, besides for the people of his country and whatnot, and everything that were living at that time. But he did say a lot of horrible things about Indian people. He did cause the starvation, with, I think, like 5 million. I don't know. I'm not even sure if it was 3 million. I think it was 5 million Mongolis that died during the famine and whatnot. And I think there was an Irish famine going on as well. And the horrible things that the British Empire did, all for the name of, like making the UK look good. But long story short, I would say definitely being proud of where you're from is okay. It's just how you use it. It's like a double-edged sword. You know what I mean? You've got to keep like a balance. If that's okay.
Definitely is. I apologize with my slow reactions, family. I'm just trying to send out the link to everybody and make sure that they are facilitated. So, all right, we're listening up so far. We're listening up. Very interesting comments so far. Very interesting historical facts or evidences have been presented. I want to know your thoughts on this. Okay, so let us know in the comment section down below. All right, let's make it easier. All right, let's do ones and twos. Winston Churchill, great hero. Number one. Winston Churchill, villain. Number two. Let us know in the chat section on the side. Let us know. And if you're watching this on a pre-recorded version, please just hit us up. Okay, hit us up in the comment section down below and let us know your thoughts as well. All right. So, family, we've only got 27 likes. Okay, can we just up those likes? Let's up those likes a little bit. Let's up those likes. Let's get people involved with the show. All right. I already said it before, right? If you want to destroy your enemies, simply hit the like button on Titans TV. And I promise you, your enemies shall be consumed with fire. All right. So already we have 5 enemies that's being consumed with the fire. All right. And we have over 46 people that's hitting the like button and they're being blessed. They're being enlightened with the light. So let's get it, family. Let's go back into the video right now. Again, if you want to join us, the link has been sent out. I think we do have Nino. Nino's in here. Nino, did you want to say anything to us before we continue the video?
No, brother. I think it's already been said from Sarah and the other person. So nah.
All right, no doubt. All right. So Miss Southeast says we must remember that if we are fighting a real war to survive, it will take some tough, brave decisions. Indeed. X says, is everything Winston did his own choice, or did he do what the parliament wanted to see done? Most leaders are puppets of others. A face, not dictators. Very interesting. Indeed, there is a lot more to do this. There's a lot of factors that one has to take in place. The gift and the curse of being a leader. All praise lands on you, and all blame lands on you as well. All right.
Kalam, sorry, you're going back in. Sorry.
The link has been sent. Let me just double check. Yeah, sent. Go ahead.
Yeah. Can you hear me properly?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. This kind of shows how it's actually possible to be more than one thing, in my opinion. It's actually possible to be a great hero and a racist at the same time. The two are not mutually exclusive. It's actually possible. If we look at Hitler, for instance, right? Hitler, as I've said on many occasions, was a genius, but Hitler was also evil. Okay? If you are able to galvanize a whole country behind you, that takes some doing. You have to be the way in which he spoke, he galvanized people. Okay, the way in which he gave his speeches, it riled people up. He said the right things, but he done it for his own evil gain. So it's actually possible to be a great leader and actually have all of these great qualities, but it's also
You've muted yourself, Sarah.
Sorry, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay, now.
Sorry, I said yeah. So it's very it's possible. Sorry, to be a genius and a great leader and also a racist. The two are not mutually exclusive, as we saw in Hitler.
Indeed. All right, so we've got loads of new panel members that have just joined us. We've got Why So Religious, Terrence is up in the building as well as Jay Khan. So it's a nice mixture of individuals on the panel. I would really love if we got some more females on the panel as well. I want to get a Scottish. Can we get somebody up in Scotland or Newcastle to come on? Come on, let's get a nice array of people on the panel as well. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to go over to the video now, okay? And then we'll get everybody else to chime in once more.
Million people starving to death in Bengal because he was more interested in stockpiling rations for the war than saving starving Indians because he didn't believe there were really people. Does it not matter to you, one scintilla, so Winston Churchill almost single-handedly rallied this country into winning World War II against the Nazis and Adolf Hitler?
Well, that's also not true. And this is
completely true.
People in India,
which part of that statement is not true?
One man did not win the war. People in India, people in the Caribbean, people in Africa also contribute to the war.
You don't think
the idea that one person won the war is crazy.
Your hatred of Winston Churchill is such that you cannot even give him credit for rallying the mood of this country when everyone thought the war was done and dusted.
Including all those people.
Here's a better question. Is your view of Britishness so myopic that you can't understand that people in India, Africa, and Caribbean count just as much as people here? And for people there, people's families starved to death because Churchill couldn't be bothered to send them rations.
Of course Churchill's a hero. Look, there is no doubt that in different times we could say all those Americans who go...
Hold on. That was kind of powerful still. That was kind of powerful. So I want to open that up. Okay? If that's possible, can we open that up? Because that was a powerful statement that was being made. Anybody would like to chime in on it? Well,
I would like to just say I think that it's funny. You labeled this should Britain feel ashamed for its racist past. In reality, it seems that people say that all white people should be ashamed of their racist past. Do you get the difference that I'm speaking of? Because I'm an American, so I just feel like the title is lending towards just one country when I feel like the majority of people, even white people, not the majority, but a significant number, try to say that we should still feel bad about it as a race as opposed to just a country.
Okay, the reason why it's not titled white is because it's to do with it's to do with Winston Churchill. So it's specific to Britain itself. And again, with the whole race thing, the race story is very outdated. I don't know if, every single European should feel pride over, one individual that doesn't belong to your community, doesn't belong to your ethnicity, doesn't belong to your nation itself. I don't know if that is the case, that because they are for certain, they're of European heritage, that we should naturally feel pride for those individuals. Because I'm pretty sure the Germans, wouldn't have felt pride in that time over Winston Churchill. So I was just trying to keep it really specific, but I see where you're coming from, and we might open it up a little bit later on to do with, white people as a whole or Europeans as a whole. Should they feel pride over certain individuals?
But were the people that were the racist past of Britain, were they white people?
They were, again, I hate using the term white.
I know you hate it, but I'm just saying in general, I've watched enough of your videos to see that you don't like the concept of race, and that's an individual perception. And what I guess I'm getting at is when you're labeling it, should Britain feel ashamed for its racist past? What was the quote unquote race of those people that you're speaking of in Britain? Because you use the word racist past, the phrase. So then you would have to at least admit that there is a certain race of Britain.
No, we're talking about,
or at least in the past, there had to be a certain race.
Yes. So in the past, you had, what they had was literally white people, or they classified it as white people, or they did classify it as English people as well. So, white and English, synonymous with each other, although it is held to be that case. So we're talking about the leaders of the past, okay? And should Britons, i.e. the modern day Britons, whether you are quote unquote black, white, Asian, and so forth, should you feel, shame, or should you hold these historical figures in pride? Or should you be ambivalent? Or should you give a fair appraisal?
Okay, that's fair. I was just going by the title. You get what I mean, Kalam? I'm not trying to attack you in general. I'm just saying, like, by the title, it would imply that if you're using the word racist past, you're not wanting to imply that race exists, but the title specifies a culture of people and then talks about race, then what race is those people? And the runaround. You get what I'm saying, sir?
Yeah. So let me be very, very clear. During the time of colonization and imperialism, Britain were racist. I would have to argue and say that they were, the country itself, the policies, the government, it was racist. It had a supremacy ideology, and their supremacy ideology was built around whiteness, and it was also built around Britishness, or the culture, okay, or being British culture. And they exported that throughout the various different colonies. They exported it as far east into Asia, and as far west into the Americas as well. And it definitely was a white supremacist ideology.
Okay, fair enough. Just trying to find the foundation. You get what I mean? Like,
no doubt. All right. So I want to know. Let me, because I've missed it. Let me just double check what it was that happened. So I want to just quickly comment on this.
for rallying the mood of this country when everyone thought the war was done and
Including
dusted.
all those people.
Here's a better question. Is your view of Britishness so myopic that you can't understand that people in India, Africa, and Caribbean count just as much as people here? And for people there, people's families starved to death because Churchill couldn't be bothered to send them rations.
Of course, Churchill's a hero. Look,
That's quite shocking. That's quite shocking. So, anybody would like to open it up and speak on this?
Which point?
If I may interject a moment, I was going to say I agree with the gentleman's statement just on the show against Piers Morgan. I mean, you do have to take into consideration all the people that was involved and who it affected, and who supported the war effort as well. So I kind of agree with that gentleman of what he just said.
Indeed. All right.
That's also a guy that says that that a flag is racist.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I've only just gotten here. I didn't hear him say a flag was racist. But I mean, this is going to sound really controversial as well, because me being a British person, of English, Scottish, and Irish extraction. I mean, me personally, this is just my opinion. I don't see Churchill as much as a big heroic figure as the nation pumps him up to be. I think there was some very, very destructive and negative elements about his politics. I mean, I'm not a fan of politicians anyway, but I'd like to say that Churchill, me personally, I think it wasn't that great. I think a war could have been avoided, but that's a whole other story anyway. But I'll let everyone else chime in, and then I'll jump back in a moment.
All right.
Yeah, Kalam. Sorry, is a guy actually saying that Winston Churchill purposely starved people? Is that what he's saying?
I think so.
Okay, well, if you are purposely going out of your way to starve,
let me actually think about that. Is he saying purposefully? I would say he had no care or concern for those individuals, and he could quite possibly known that would be the outcome. So yeah. So out of negligence or not upholding his care of duty, I would say. I don't want to say purposeful, because that sounds like premeditated murder. So I would rather say negligence and lack of care of duty.
So this is a thing now. For me, if he purposely knowingly starved a people, then that could be classed as genocide.
Or what about warfare as far as embargoes?
Yeah, I mean, you do have to take in consideration as well, like, it was a war, I mean, everything's being pumped into this effort of, pushing back the Germans. And obviously, people... Go on, sorry.
Wasn't the Bengali part of his, on his side? And they belonged to the British Empire that was fighting the war with him, before him. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. You don't let me know.
Do you know what?
This speaks to... Point. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, because you don't really hear about this in school and history lessons, really, of these, people obviously affected, but you don't really hear about it. But carry on, Sarah. I was going to say.
No, I mean,
you don't really hear,
on a very base level, this speaks to the reason why I'm a nationalist, right? Because I'm not saying people have bad intentions, but I do know that no one is going to have the best intentions for my people like I will, right? So Winston Churchill, being a white British man, has probably got the best intentions or better intentions, or probably loves his nation more so than loves the Bengalis. Now, the Bengalis may fall under the Commonwealth banner. However, his first port of call is for his people. And so this is why I keep telling people about being nationalist. It's not the fact that you're I'm not a nationalist because I hate somebody. I'm the nationalist because I know that I cannot rely on anyone else to do for me or my people, like I can rely on myself. I can't allow myself to rely on other people. And that situation there, okay, was if it happened, and if, because I don't know the ins and outs, but if that's what happened, the people of Bangladesh, or the Bengali people, were at fault in my eyes for allowing somebody else to be that powerful over them.
Fair point. Good point.
I mean, to be serious, if you said to me that Winston Churchill was a hero in the sense of Adolf Hitler and his world domination, and if he had not been defeated, would we all be speaking German today? Then I could say to you, yeah, in that sense, he was a hero for stopping the Germans. But in other things that he did, you could say, oh, that's suspect.
Do you
Just
honestly?
Just because things are suspect doesn't mean they didn't work out for the better. Sorry to interrupt, Jazz. Go ahead.
I just want to say, like, some of the people on the panel are saying that Germany and England are sort of separate from each other since World War II, but not realizing that they were actually in bed with each other. And I was agreeing with the guy, the war could have been avoided, but the war happened, and, you know, like, it was like every man for himself. That
Yeah, that's an interesting point, actually. See, this is one of the reasons why I'm not really a fan of Churchill, because from my understanding, you know, we say that the war could have been avoided. As far as I know, you know, from my research, I might be wrong, but Germany tried, you know, a number of times not to even go to war with Britain, and Churchill rallied it. I mean, my grandfather was obviously in the war, so I've kind of got like a dog in this fight. Do you know what I mean? So,
also,
So a man that's killing people on genocidal numbers, you believe that could be trusted? And that's the whole thing. If you're saying that the war could have been avoided, then the question would be, do you trust him, Hitler, more than you would trust Winston Churchill in their actions?
I mean,
not just their statement, but in their actions. Because Hitler actually had a truce with Russia, but still went against Russia.
Yeah, they both invaded Poland, didn't they?
So the thing would be, why would you trust one over the other? At least one, as Sarah was saying, had the interest of his own people at hand. The other one had no interest in your people other than to conquer your land and kill a portion of your population due to their religious background.
Exactly.
Hang on. And I want to reply to Iso for a second. But, like, you're saying to me that who would you rather trust, Adolf Hitler or Winston Churchill, when Winston Churchill is praised and respected to be he's respected so much in his country, he's on the 5-pound note, basically.
Yeah, I know, because, you know,
as an American, I don't have to respect him. I just have to look at the character of two people, which, as Sarah pointed out, one of them cared about their people, and the other one the other one only cared about his people based off the concept of race. Now, when you're and about religious affiliation, Hitler only cared about people that were Germans that were not Jewish Germans. As far as I know, Winston Churchill was fighting for every Briton. He wasn't fighting just for Britons.
I don't think he was.
He wasn't fighting for only Britons that
he wasn't fighting for the British people. No way. I don't believe that. Sorry,
I think we get into a grey area there. Because,
Listen.
It's a hot potato, man.
No, because Hitler actually had Jewish people in his army.
Yeah, of course he did, and he had Africans as well, Muslims, you know.
Yeah, so he had quite
Japanese
Muslim,
as well, Koreans.
Yeah, Muslims are working with him. There's all kinds of people working with him. So, you know, I guess Hitler. I said this is why I talk about how people can be evil geniuses. Hitler had a plan. And he didn't care who he used to get that plan, you know, done. He was going to use Africans, Muslims. He was going to use Jews themselves.
What do you mean a plan? Like what? What do you mean, like world domination or what?
Exactly, that was his plan.
And that's what I was getting at.
I don't believe that. I don't fall for that propaganda. I don't think he wants to take over the world. I just think.
Okay, I've got a question for you
Of course,
guys.
because he was going to split it. He was going to split it with the Japanese. He was going to conquer the whole world because he was going to split it with the Japanese.
I don't know, man. I think. Go on, Jez.
I was going to question: who supported Adolf Hitler during World War II? Who was the #1 financer of Adolf Hitler? Where did the money come from?
European industrial companies.
I don't know. It depends how you look at it, because I mean, when Hitler removed, the bankers and these people of influence from certain aspects of the society, and the government, when he kicked out the bankers and replaced the banking system with like a barter system, the economy took off like a rocket. So they kind of funded themselves. It was all based on hard work and whatnot. Because you need to remember when Hitler came into power, that country was on its knees literally, and he took the country from a shambles to a superpower in the space of 6 years, something like that.
Yeah,
like
but
that,
you still
no one's done that in history.
In that short amount of time.
I mean, go on.
Money. You'll still need money in that. Sorry to interrupt, but you will still need money, and you need money for how the hell can you change in 6 years? That's just insane to me. That's not even a generation.
That's the miracle of what he did. That's why so many people believed in him. I think because he completely changed the country.
Well, if you look at socialism in general, it's very. Guys,
I just want to get back into the video real quickly. I'm trying to just relax. Yeah, you guys need to just stay focused. Watch the video. Talk about the topics or points that's been raised in the video. Because I just want to relax. I want you guys just to take over and just run the show, baby. Run the show for me.
There is no doubt that in different times we could say all those Americans who go on about how great America is should get them out of there because they nicked it off the indigenous population, and that is part of history. And maybe we should say the same about the Italians coming here in Roman times. Look, if it hadn't been for Winston Churchill, and hey, we all have flaws, I think we probably would not have had the stomach to take on Hitler. Absolutely. So he rallied everybody in this country at a time. Just remember
and around the world.
Remember when? And can I just say? I want to say something because I quite like you, and I've seen you on TV before. When I was at school, and this is bad, when I was at school, I never learned that any Asian or black soldiers fought in the Second World War. I think that is terrible. But back on to Churchill. Of course, he is a British hero, like Margaret Thatcher, like various other people I could think of. When what's his face came back and said there will be peace in our time.
Chamberlain.
Thank you very much indeed. Everybody was about to give in to Hitler. Now, have we done that? Can you imagine? Well, we wouldn't all be here.
Why do you not think this is historically accurate?
Do you really think this is how history works? That one person turns up and goes, "Where's a magic one?"
Actually,
and all of a sudden,
in World War II, I genuinely believe, and this is why he was recently voted the greatest ever Briton, is that notwithstanding his flaws and deflammatory rhetoric and all those things, none of which are, I think, in dispute, Churchill evolved as a man, and he became, for his time, a wonderful leader for the country, motivating morale both of civilians and people on the front line to rally when it looked like it was over.
You need leadership.
You need somebody who can get people fired up to go into battle.
Hindi, who is the perfect politician, campaigner, leader?
There is
no one. There's no one.
Do you want to see Jeremy Corbyn?
But name somebody.
No, honestly, I think this is...
David, do you have any heroes?
Malcolm X. I mean,
Malcolm X, right? But Malcolm X, I could paint a very different picture of Malcolm X to the one you
talk about Nelson Mandela.
I could say that he was a racist. He was inflammatory.
But he wasn't.
Well,
Nelson Mandela.
Actually, Malcolm X said many inflammatory things, right?
Nelson Mandela, hero or terrorist?
Nelson Mandela was a celeb, but that's another question.
Okay. Let me ask you guys the question. Nelson Mandela. Let's see. All right. Let's see how it pans out. Nelson Mandela. What was he? Hero or terrorist?
Hero.
It depends who's answering the question, isn't it?
It depends. It might depend what area you're talking about too.
Agreed. I think, to be honest, the prison system, the South African prison system, did its job on him, innit? Like, everyone celebrates the fact that he, spent however many years, and didn't break and all this rubbish. By the time he come out, the guy had lost all of his fire, man. That's why he was kind of the pathetic president that he ended up being, really. So I think Sarah's right.
So we're saying we're judging them based on the time, the location, and the circumstance. Oh, damn.
And the people and the person who's asking the question, because yeah.
Why
because,
so? Nelson,
because context is key when you answer questions. Most people, when they answer questions, don't use context. Most people try to give a blanket answer. Okay, and I've always said you can't run for either polar opposite side of the equation. Sometimes there's a bit in between that people generally don't look at, the grey bit. Yeah, and a lot of the time the answer is a little bit grey, more so than either black or either white.
Oh. All right. Anybody else? Anybody else want to check?
I thought it was quite interesting he mentioned Malcolm, that they brought up Malcolm X. I mean, I'm a fan of Malcolm X personally. I think he was a good man, you know, like, you know, helping his community, you know, all that stuff. But I can't say I'm a fan of Mandela. Definitely not.
Wow, why not? What's the reason? Give your reason.
I don't know. It's a bit dynamic, yeah. But I mean, me personally, from my point of view, I'd say Mandela was just like a communist, really. You know what I mean? So, you know, I mean, if you saw what he even done to his own people, I mean, he invented that necklacing. You know, they used to put. I'm not saying like let's say white South Africans that were any better or anything, you know, because they've both done bad things. But like me personally, I just think he was a bit of like some of the tactics he used, even on his own people, man, like it was quite crazy, you know. But me personally, I'm not a fan of Mandela.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. There's no such thing as a perfect hero.
Yeah.
That, I mean,
definitely, absolutely.
Even for me, Mandela went into prison one man and came out another man. When Mandela came out and you know, he became president. I was in South Africa a few years ago, and while apartheid may be finished, economic apartheid still reigns supreme. So the wealth of South Africa is heavily geared towards white South Africans. And at the point where Nelson Mandela was in power, he actually had the power to redistribute the wealth amongst the people, and he chose not to. So, but I believe the Nelson Mandela that went into prison, if he had that power, he probably would have done that.
Okay, so quickly,
which was more successful, though?
Sorry, before you do that, I just want to quickly read out from John McDermott. He says over here, Churchill was an ideal candidate for a wartime prime minister, and he was effective in doing so. The right man for the job at that particular time. Let us know your thoughts on that one, okay? Let us know in the comment, do you agree with that statement or do you disagree? Type in 1 if you agree with John McDermott. Type in 2 if you disagree. Powerful statement. Go ahead. You lot can carry on the conversation.
On that note, I just wanted to say, yeah, I think any wartime nation needs a leader who can galvanize the people in it. So, and for the people, I think, do you know what, to be honest, yeah, if there was imagine there was a war now, right? And, you know, I might not regard myself as British, but I'm here, yeah? If there was a war here and say Germany or France wanted to invade and whatever, and I didn't have the means to leave, yeah, I'd probably be on the side of whoever it is that's in power that needs to galvanize the nation to defeat these people, because, you know, I might have family here who are going to be at risk of whatever the outcome may be should they lose. So, you know, to be real, yeah, I think time also makes a big difference, because there's probably people who are still alive now who were in the war, and at the time of the war they were all for it, and now they might have a completely different opinion because hindsight has given them the gift of perspective. So yeah, it's a difficult one, but I think any nation that wants to not implode and not be taken over is going to want to have a leader. That's not to say I despise Winston Churchill, innit? I despise him because he's part of the story of Great Britain. You know, he's one of the characters that appeared later on in the story, but he's part of the story of Great Britain, and I have no love for Great Britain at all, even though I live here.
Yeah, that's a hypocritical statement, though, isn't it? I mean, like you're obviously born here and stuff, you know. I mean,
keep talking.
you know, like if you don't like it and stuff, then why be here, innit? Like, why be a part of it? I don't understand.
Who are you a fan of, may I ask?
One sec, let me just answer the other brother. You've reduced the conversation to a very low level.
No, I'm just asking just a normal question, isn't it? Because like you're there saying you're not a fan of Great Britain and stuff, you know. I just find it interesting. That's all.
We can talk about that. There's been other live broadcasts on that subject, but that's not what we're talking about right now. What I'm trying to say, what I've said, a number of things I've said. Subjectivity is an important thing to consider, because people's opinions at the time, like I said, if there was a war now, yeah, my initial reaction, because it's an issue of mortality, it's an issue of survival, yeah. So people, when they need to survive, they will do things that are probably either out of their character or out of their regular kind of thought processes, isn't it? So I might support. That doesn't mean I would want to go to war, but I'm saying if I was put in a position where I couldn't leave, where I knew my family would be at risk tomorrow, yeah, there's planes on their way now, yeah, I would probably have to make choices that would go against my political standpoint. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm trying to be open and not close-minded to these kind of things.
So which countries are you a fan of?
Really?
Which countries have it right? You know, if it comes down to, well, if you're not a fan of, let's say, England, I live in America, so of course I'm not a fan of England. You know what I mean?
Bro, it's not about being a fan. Let's use some.
I thought that's the word you used.
Yeah, but I think you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about colonialism, innit? I'm talking about the British Empire.
That's years and years ago. Centuries ago.
It's an interesting point.
Are you trying to say Great Britain as in the Great British Empire, or Britain as in, you know, Britain
modern day?
Today?
The story has not finished. We're still in
exactly.
That's a good
still
point.
in the same story. I find it, you know what? Like, it's pure cognitive dissonance that people don't understand that we're still on the same timeline. Nothing's like we're further down the line. What did you think?
Why can't I say? I'm sorry, but why can't I say that it's cognitive dissonance that you're living in the past and not the present?
Fair point.
How is that a fair point? Justify that, because that actually makes no sense.
Because what you're trying to say is just like the question of this video, this live stream. Should Britain feel shameful? Why should it feel shameful after all of the medicine, education?
Yeah, I think we should look at the positive aspects as well.
All the positives that have occurred from its evil past, as some would say, and to the point that where even you, who quote say you're not a fan of England or Britain, but yet you're able to live there freely, as opposed to many. Let's say African nations or Asian or Middle Eastern nations, where if you voice any type of criticism, you will not be able to live as freely as you do right now.
This is the same reason why different people can have different heroes. Is the same reason why you won't understand the answer that I give you, right?
Isn't that unfair and racist to say that I can't understand something that you say?
Bro, please maintain an intellectual level here, because
no.
I'm telling you something.
You attacked my intellect.
Wow.
No, relax. I'm not offended. I'm just telling you that I've just.
No problem. Let me just mute out your mics for now. Sorry about that. Got to mute you out. Oh man, that Hassan is up in the building. Okay, he jumped out. All right. Before I go any further, I just wanted to salute everybody in the chat section right now who's doing their thing. Salute to you guys. Oh man, we're going in, and right now I just want to hail up everybody who has actually been donators on our super chat. Right, I'm making sure that you guys have really been going in. I want to make sure that you guys get your props. Like, you don't need to get your praise for doing an awesome job, right? So again, shout out to Ultra Funky, M Blaney Films, Nosson, my brother Nosson. What's good, G? I know you're in the comment section right now. Shouts out to Carly Simone. Shouts out to Puntai Not Pirate. I am as well. Opus Dei. All right. Big Man Opus Dei. All right. I have to do that. Oga Opus Dei. Yeah. Dawn Rushton up in the chat section right now, putting that work. Despise Ban as well. Ashanti Black, my brother, all the way from America as well. Rich LK, yeah, man, Rich LK and John McDermott. All right, you already know, yeah. That's the original. That's my day one right there, John McDermott. So salute to you guys for always showing the love and supporting us over here on Titans TV. Always hitting the super chat button. I respect you guys. I love you guys. I want to make sure that the whole community knows about you guys and also shows you guys the love and support back in return. All right. Sorry. So we've got a few new individuals that have joined us. Before anybody else comes in, let me go and play some more of the video and we can have more conversation.
It was a sellout. But that's another question.
A man who served 30 years in prison and then came out and practiced peace.
And broke
when they could have been
apartheid.
civil war is a sellout.
My point is this.
Do you think you have a problem, Kendi, in looking at heroes and looking for the bad side and overlooking the massive bigger picture?
I think the problem, and this is the problem that Britain has, the reality is that the history of this country is built on racism. And therefore, everybody involved in it probably has a really racist
Why do you think
this is a problem? I admit this is a problem.
You know what? My problem.
We have to touch on that topic, right? So the topic, just so you guys know,
Overlooking the massive bigger picture.
I think the problem, and this is the problem that Britain
is this. Ready? Wait for you. He drops a big bombshell. So this is it.
has. The reality is that the history of this country is built on racism. And therefore, everybody involved in it probably has a really racist
Why do you
and
think
this is a problem. I admit this is a problem.
You know what? My problem.
But
I'll be
this is
honest
true.
with you, Kendi. You're a smart guy. My problem is with smart people like you.
All right. So let's jump on that real quickly. Let's actually jump on that. Before I do go to everybody inside of the chat section, inside of the panel section, let me just go over to the chat section. Okay, let's jump into the chat section real quickly and see if you guys have tagged me as Titans TV. So you look at that, man, like John McDermott already. Okay, he's there again. All right, salute to John McDermott showing that love and donating on the super chat button. Love for you, family. Love, love, love. Again, I told you, that's my original. That's my day one right there. Bigger Valley is up in the building as well. Bigger Valley, if you want to come in, the link has been sent out. Anybody else that wants to join us as well, the link is there. Emo Ben Israel, what's good? Right, so if you've got any questions, you already know what you need to do. You simply type Titans TV. Shakara says, not gonna lie, personally, I don't know why we entertain certain conversations with feisty white folks. Woo. But I guess someone needs to hear the back and forth. Woo. Wow. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. We've got Pleasant Kaka says, let the guy on the left speak. He's interesting. I guess that is why so religious. You guys want to hear some more of him? All right. So, now like Middlesex Omar is up in the building. All right. So let's do this now. So we've got a few, new faces. I want to bring them in first. So Salman, is there anything that you would like to add? Nope. All right. King Jamie 2. Is there anything that you would like to add? Nope. All right. So I'm gonna open this up to the to everybody. I want to know, okay, is Britain's past built on racism, and is it something that is difficult for us to face up to? Let me just.
is built on racism, and therefore everybody involved in it probably has a really racist.
Why do you think
Okay. All right. So Britain's past was built on racism, and yeah, talk to me, family. Talk to me. Let me open it out for you guys.
I mean,
By what year is the standard?
I think he's talking right now, talking about colonization and imperialism.
Well, of course, but he's not talking about when England was taken over by the Romans, by the Vikings, by the French, by other white people. But of course, it was only built after his victimization.
Ooh, sugar. What we saying, family? Anybody want to jump in on that? That's controversial, right?
It's for anyone that reads world history, if we're going back to, I don't know, say the 1400s, the British Empire was built on slavery. It was built on colonization. It was built on, theft of other people's stuff. It was built on the rape of lands. Like, that's a given. And anyone who thinks it wasn't obviously hasn't been reading world history. A lot of this was done via a mindset of one, Christianizing the world or Christianizing the savage, and two, feeling as if you were racially superior to the people that you were quote unquote Christianizing or colonizing. So, I think that's just a given now, I would say.
So it's just based off of the past 600 years. It's not based off of the 1,000 years beforehand.
1,000 years beforehand,
which was
right.
still building a country, right? Still building an empire, if you will. It's still
No.
building a people, a civilization that were constantly conquered by other people inside their own race, similar inside of across the whole world, where people of a similar race would be conquered by people of a similar race.
Not really,
and subjugated. Not really.
Because, right, if you look at the technological advances of the time before they went around the world, before like Christopher Columbus and that, as soon as the aristocrats, and I don't want to say all white people because that's not fair, but the aristocrats, the elites that think that they're better even from the people that they are from, went around the world and literally started to go across the world. Maybe you're talking about the medieval times when it was within the nations. But when they had the opportunity to go further and beyond, they took it and they they went with it.
Yeah.
My question would be, do you think that other races wouldn't have done the same thing if they didn't have the technology?
Absolutely.
Okay,
racism is not exclusive.
Okay, just asking because I think that's a very important point that people don't want to look at, that all people across the world and all societies have always wanted more power and superiority compared to other civilizations and cultures, and that they'll do whatever it takes to try to obtain that.
I think one of the best examples in modern day, would probably be the whole Israel and the Palestine situation, where the Jewish people that live in Israel, that, and I'm not going to say all Israelis because I've not actually been in Israel, but if you look into it and research it, they actually believe, the Orthodox Jewish people actually believe that they are the superior race. But
they are Jewish supremacists all day, every day.
And
you
Muslims,
think white people are
Muslims
racist? They're the
believe
most
the same
racist
thing.
people going right now. I mean, in laws in
Muslim
England,
is not a race though.
But they believe in spiritual superiority. They believe that even the Quran says that Islam will be the religion above all religions, and that's the reason they developed the dhimmi system, where there is jizya that people who are not Muslim have to pay as a protection pole. So from race to belief / religion, it's a common thing across humans, across the whole world, that dominance is wanted and strived for.
First of all,
I would say that there's a gray area here that people aren't addressing. It is very it's a slippery slope when you attempt to superimpose the worldview of your culture on a people and a culture you don't know much about, and which is why I would say the study of anthropology is essential to try and understand different ways in which different parts of the human family live. You can go to quote unquote tribal societies, right, who have absolutely no desire to conquer the world. Okay, they are quite content in the way in which they live, and they have they've built a society based on their own moral values and their own spiritual systems, and they have no desire to conquer the rest of the world. They just don't. So to say, oh, mankind is like this or humankind is like this is a slippery slope, because what we now do is we now superimpose our worldview on a people who don't have it. Okay, and some people would say that's a very either Eurocentric or Eurasian-centered way of viewing things, because that's been the history of Europe, or that's been the history of Asia, or that's been the history of, Arabia. However,
Well, I
that
don't
is not.
think I ever stated, and I'll check the video later, that that people wanted to conquer the world. I said they wanted to conquer civilizations. They wanted to other cultures. It's just like Michel de Montaigne, who was a French writer, philosopher who I followed growing up really a lot. He mentioned about how in the South Americas, when people came over, their wars were just a couple of tribes would go over and they would battle a different tribe, kidnap them, and then set them free later on. But they wanted to show dominance. They wanted to show that if they chose to, they could get whatever they wanted from these people. And that's reflective across the world, that pretty much all societies, and I think that's the word I used, was societies, they want to get as much as they can out of other societies, not necessarily just race, because like I mentioned, various countries in Europe were conquered by other European countries of white people and then still enslaved by white people.
Correct.
Just like in Asia, just like in Africa, just like in South Americas. So it wasn't uncommon.
No. All human beings. This is the way I would personally word it. Human beings, throughout their time on this planet, have been in conflict with one another for either land or resources or whatever. That's a given to me, and I'm sure, and I don't know if anyone would actually, disagree with that. However, I would say that the more, I can use the term aggressive, the more aggressive form of that or galvanized itself within different societies over other societies, if that makes sense. So while there may have
I think
been
that's
tribal,
unfair, because some
no,
society.
hang on, because while
Okay.
there may have been tribal wars amongst tribes in Africa, the Africans' desire was not to take that war to the rest of Europe. It didn't want to take that war to the rest of, I don't know, South America, and say, yeah, we've got this now, we're going to go and conquer the rest of the whole world. Whereas
How did Egypt become an empire?
Egypt became an empire?
And it's one of the earliest civilizations that there was a northern Egyptian empire,
There was
and then it
Upper and Lower
spread to the
Egypt.
south, and then it spread to the south, and then they merged together through marriage after wars, and then Egypt spread into the Middle East. It wasn't through peaceful means, and it wasn't for any other reason than conquering a different civilization, society,
mean?
culture, and then they ended up enslaving those people.
Enslaving who?
Sorry?
Enslaving who? I don't understand. Are we talking about? See, I like to go with a historical fact. There's no records of slavery in Egypt except for the biblical version. So
Exactly.
we'd have to go into factual information for that one.
I don't know.
Can I ask,
No,
like,
no.
are
Okay,
you
go
are
ahead.
you like
So
Sarah,
who built
like,
the pyramids?
oh
People
God.
from Egypt.
Oh,
Jez,
you lot, can I
Are these all volunteers?
What was Jez going to say?
can I just take it back for 1 second, just real quick? Why so religious?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think the initial question Kalam asked was along the lines of what was it? Was the British Empire built on slavery, or was that the question roughly?
Racism.
Racism. Okay.
Yes.
No, I don't
Right.
think he. No. He mentioned the video. In the video, it was saying that Britain was built on slavery, and my
Yeah,
my
that's-
point was that Britain was being built upon itself and was
Right.
taken over by other cultures,
Yeah.
other civilizations.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was
Let me
the
jump.
point I was
Let me
getting
jump.
at.
Let me jump on that. Let me jump on that real quick. So I understand that you're trying to equalize the situation in terms of the timeline of the British Empire. What I would say is the relevance of the slave trade to 2018 can be seen in the corporations that have benefited from the slave trade directly. So you have people like companies like JP Morgan, a couple of Rothschild banks,
Lloyd Banks.
There's a long list. There's a long list that you can find online. If you just type in corporations that benefited from the slave trade, you can see it. You can go back to the idea of the stock market. Apparently,
how many businesses do not benefit from it? As far as how many businesses have been created after the slave trade?
No, but we're
are
talking
very
about,
successful.
We're talking about foundational, right? You have to understand something, right?
But you're talking about a small percentage compared to a grand percentage.
I'm gonna answer your questions, right? You're talking about the main factors that can separate kind of the time period before and after slavery is the economic model that we have now, capitalism. Yeah, that's the kind of marker that you need to use to establish the narrative. Yeah. So where you have, and
Why?
even we could have
just say that, you need to explain why that's the marker.
I'm gonna tell you. We could even have mentioned this when we were talking about World War II, or was it World War I or World War II, where the Federal Reserve was created during that period of time, and they used that money. So the Rothschilds, after they'd been kicked out of Germany, yeah, so they're Austrian, I believe. After they were kicked out, they actually used Germany as a prototype, as a test ground for America. Yeah, they used the same model that they used. So where we were talking about the fact that they had a monopoly in Germany, and they had a minority of people, the Zionist Jews or the Jewish people, period, in Germany at the time were a minority, yes, but they had incredible financial wealth. Yeah, that was still centered on a small percentage of that small population. So that was a testing ground. Yeah, and they used that testing ground to then maximize the model in America. So we could have used that as an example to show to bring context to the conversation. So anyway, let me go back again.
But there was no slavery during that time.
No, but I'm just showing you how the economic model was being prepared.
But you didn't answer my question. No.
I'm going to answer your question now, right? So the reason why the question you asked me, right, was why is it that how can I prove essentially that the economic model is the key turning point or the key factor to give context to the story, to the narrative? True?
No, it was how can you prove that capitalism was based off of slavery?
Very simple, the stock market.
No, just okay.
No.
So then, oh wait, no. So then, by that conclusion, an analogy would be that all lever and pulley systems are essentially slavery. Have a slavery history. No, because it was created in the time when slavery was allowed, and so was feudalist times. So, feudalist times are also slavery. The concept of communism, which disavows slavery, would still be considered a slavery concept because it was at the time when inside of the world there were parts of the world that had slavery. So it seems like a flaw in your philosophy that just because something was invented in the time of slavery, and then that makes it compatible.
If it wasn't for capitalism, right, you wouldn't have proxy wars. You wouldn't have the ratio of wealthy people to poor people would not be at the record high that it is now. Right.
How can you prove that? Because everybody's been poor and been slaves and been serfs throughout history until capitalist tendencies. You see, because you know what a serf was, right? A serf was just right above a slave, essentially. And then you had indentured servants who would work for years and not make any money and had to earn their ability inside of a country. So with the capitalist system, it actually gave people the ability to provide and own stuff, as opposed to what you're saying, which is the capitalist system enticed slavery even more, but yet somehow slavery died out and the capitalist system spread across the world.
No, what it did, right, is it utilized a specific population, or specific population. So, for example, the underclass in Britain, right, it utilized them, and their need for to feel or to have a better way of life. Yeah, it utilized that hunger. Yeah, turned it into a weapon. They weaponized that. Yeah, and they used it as a well to draw from in terms of, okay, the 3/5 rule, the 3/5 fallacy of, you know, that how black people are 3/5 of a human being, etc., etc. So they utilized the
well, before they were actually before they weren't considered human beings. So isn't 3/5 actually a step up?
Let me finish. Let me.
I know I'm not trying to be mean, but that's a kind of a valid point.
Bro, please. Let me finish. So what they do is they utilize a population, right? And what you see as people benefit, as you know, capitalism giving people the possibilities of owning stuff and whatever. Yes, for a small part of the world, right? For what they call first world nations, but the converse outcomes of that is that the rest of the world, yeah, become poorer and poorer and poorer and sicker and sicker and sicker and lose more and more and more land over time. So like your Eurocentric view, yeah, I know you're American, but you have a Eurocentric view, yeah, is trying to paint a picture as though capitalism has been good for everybody around the world, and it just simply is not the case.
Question. Which countries are the ones that provide the medicine, and which countries are the ones that provide the food and the water to these countries that you say are getting sicker and starvation and drought? It's the capitalistic countries, is it not?
I don't know about you, but
Is it
here
not?
in the UK,
You laugh, but is it not the ones that are providing these and who are the ones
Why
who are going
so?
out and building the schools in these countries?
No, sorry. Why so? That's a fallacy. That is a fallacy. To say that I am going to rob you, but then later on I'll come and leave a sandwich at your door doesn't mean I haven't
Who's saying
robbed you.
anything about robbing, Banksy?
I'm talking about what the Western nations have done, and now they're giving back a crumb off their table to the very nations.
No. So you're saying what
destroyed.
Western nations have done, but that's centuries ago. That's
No,
people
it's happening. It's decades ago. It's not even centuries. It's literally decades. There are still people alive who were under the colonial wing of the British Empire, who have suffered from neo-colonialism of the American empire and the British Empire. There are still people alive who've suffered under that.
Yes, there may be people still alive who have suffered from various things. I have suffered from going into a neighborhood that was all black people. Should I blame all black people for that? Should I blame the whole community for that?
I'm just trying to give you a time span.
This is a
lifetime of a human being.
This is a credible thing because you said that I'm using a fallacy. So my question is, I went into a neighborhood that was predominantly black, and I was mugged and pistol whipped with a gun. Should I be able to say that because they did it to me right then and there, I should not be able to treat them better in the future, or that they shouldn't be able to treat me better in the future, and that it would be a fallacy? No,
it's a fallacy when you say that you went to a neighborhood, they robbed you and pistol whipped you, and then a day later they came over, knocked on your door, and gave you $20. So they're obviously good guys. They must be great guys because they gave you $20, right? Even though they mugged you. And
who said anything about being great? Who said
no,
anything?
But that's the impression you're giving, as if these capitalist nations that are helping and building hospitals around these poor nations are such great.
No, that's not
altruistic nations that are doing that. But the fact is, they are rich. Off the back of the blood of those people.
If that's the impression I gave, if that's the impression I gave, that wasn't the impression I was going for. My whole point.
You're arguing a case for capitalism.
No. My whole point here is it's not all these socialist countries. Okay, if you're against capitalism, then you'd either be against capitalism and for socialism or barterism. Because
there's a big confusion here because a lot of people are kind of trying to conflate capitalism with foreign policy of colonial European nations, and they aren't the same thing. Capitalism is it's not a particular country's decision to
capitalism drives a lot of these policies. You must be naive if you think that capitalism and corporations don't drive American foreign policies and their decisions around the world. Of course they do. It is because of corporations that America makes such foreign policy decisions.
Possibly, but
Then what
but then
drives
you need to
Zimbabwe's
weigh that
decision?
up against what an alternative to capitalism like socialism would do.
No,
And
that
socialism has its own
is a false
I think
paradigm.
I
That's a
think
false dichotomy. That there's only two choices. There's only capitalism or socialism. That
Yeah,
there is no other
That's the
way
reason I said
people can live other than
barterism.
these two systems.
That's the reason I said
that is okay.
barterism, capitalism, or socialism, all the way to communism. You have a whole
No,
spectrum
there are
of them.
cooperative.
Which
There
one
are
of
many
them?
other systems. There are cooperative
I'm not
systems
I'm
which are
not
not
disagreeing
necessarily
with that,
socialist.
Banksy, I'm not disagreeing with that. But what I'm saying is, which system is trying to provide for the world in the best way possible, because it makes it beneficial for those places and for the places that are helping them. It's capitalism. It's not socialism. It's not.
I think that neither capitalism or socialism is the answer for people, because the idea behind capitalism is that private sectors or corporations find any way, anyhow, to generate a large sum amount of money to the lower classes. So you could say the countries that have embraced capitalism, I don't know about America, but in the UK we have food banks where the gap between the poor and the rich is so different, significantly higher compared to other parts of the world. So I'm not saying.
Sorry.
Okay, so sorry,
I just want to mention,
Can I?
when you talk
Can I?
about
Can
the
I
gap
kind of?
between the rich and the poor in Britain, you really should go and look at other countries with other systems. In fact, have a little gander at Venezuela just recently, and then come and tell me that there are food banks in Britain and how terrible that is. You guys really need to look around and see when we talk about poor in Britain, they are considered rich everywhere else. When you go to Brazil, talk to a Brazilian and talk about the poor in America. They snub at you and go, "You're all rich because
Okay,
you're all fed and you don't have to walk 10 miles to
can I?
from a dirty
Boo
bottle."
fucking who?
On the
No,
capitalism.
I'm just saying that I'm trying to give you guys some perspective. Don't think that just because there are people going to food banks that we're all poor, but also don't think that capitalism is this innocent, banal force in which all it's done is good. Capitalism lives off the lifeblood of poorer nations. It is the leech that has sucked from other nations. It
Until
isn't
they
some
become a
benevolent
rich
thing.
nation, right? Until it's like South Korea, who after 60 years is one of the top countries because of capitalism compared to its counterpart in North Korea.
That isn't entirely because it is capitalistic, and it is because it survives off American interest.
Okay, so
the fact
can
is that
we?
South Korea's interest is aligned with with America's interest. Wait, just give me, I would love it for 1 week. South Korea and their interest defies or goes against American interest.
Yeah, but
now
you
you're
do
talking
understand
about
though.
politics
But hang
rather
on,
than
hang on.
capitalism.
Can I say something? You do understand that capitalism, like the rest of the world, had to get with capitalism, or be left behind. You do understand that, right? So the world is now on a running on a capitalist system based on imperialism, whether that be colonialism or the banking system. So the banking system, okay, because what people really like, a lot of people don't read world history and how banking systems collapse currency in other countries. Okay, and so this whole capitalist system was actually brought about via imperialism, via colonialism. Not every country had a capitalist system, but now to get with the times, to get with the current system, you're going to have to take on capitalism as your way of life. Okay.
How do we know that? Well, all the countries like South Korea and whatnot, if you're saying that they're all like will compete in to get into capitalism, how do we know like somewhere down the line that system's not going to work and everything's going to collapse and all those countries that competed with the Western countries are like in shitholes?
I didn't understand that. I'm sorry.
I meant, how do we know, like, with what Sarah said about all those countries right now that wanted to compete and wanted to get into the capitalist system, what if somewhere down the line this capitalism system that we have gets destroyed, like messes up?
Right. So if this system, I don't know. I mean, systems rise, systems fall. That's just the way the world goes. Like that's, capitalism might be on its way out. Who knows? But
hopefully, fingers crossed.
The point that I was making is that, people were talking about capitalism, and not understanding how capitalism came about. Not every country wants to be a capitalist, but because of the banking systems of the world, you have to get with it. Okay.
No, not necessarily.
You do. I'm telling you. Okay.
No, you don't.
You have to get with capitalism, mate. I'm telling
Sarah,
you.
what do you mean when you say capitalism? Could you just define
which
it? Because I
successful
think there's
countries aren't capitalistic, Banksy?
Sorry? Which successful countries are not
successful
capitalistic?
Countries that have a high life expectancy, low birth rate, birth death, which countries that have least amount of poverty, which countries that have the best technology for its citizens, and so forth, are not capitalistic. Now, of course, they don't have to do it. Nobody has to do anything as a country, especially because it's not an individual decision. But you can see that throughout the world, the individuals inside of different countries tend to want to migrate towards capitalist countries.
Now, let's look
at Cuba. Let's look at Cuba, right? Because people say, oh, Cuba is not a capitalist country, right? Do you understand the pressure, though, that was put on Cuba to become a capitalist country? The embargoes put on Cuba, all of these things put on Cuba, okay, to actually the pressure to become a capitalist country. So even if you're not a capitalist country, there's so much pressure that is now put on you by capitalist countries for you to get with their system.
It's not. I mean, this is the thing. Unfortunately, the debates are always in these sort of debates. It's a false debate. The debate is people use the word capitalism, but what they actually are referring to, these countries that they're referring to, is countries who are not capitalistic at all. They are crony capitalists. These countries are not. America isn't a capitalist nation. America is a crony capitalist nation. And the problem is people
Could you define that for me, please?
Well, the fact is that your corporations dictate what American foreign policy and internal policy.
Separate was crony capitalism and was capitalism.
Crony capitalism is when corporations have paid and bought every politician that makes laws in your country, whilst the capitalism that most people tend to want to debate is this Ayn Rand, again, this myth capitalism, which is this perfect, even, equal, what's it called? Even playing field where everybody competes equally and nobody influences or buys out politicians, and the market always decides the outcome. This is a fake capitalism. This is capitalism that doesn't exist.
By your definition, then it would also be that Venezuela was not socialist; it was a crony socialist country.
But they all are. They're all fake versions. They're
so
all.
Then you don't have any examples of real government ran by the economic systems that you think would cause equality in the world. You don't have any example.
There are systems. There are systems, as I said to you. There are cooperatives. There are actual genuine. You could even have a benevolent dictatorship, which would run a country better than a capitalist system.
You could, but can you name?
In fact, Cuba, if it wasn't under the sanctions and the embargoes, they would have done far better than America in the long run.
Correct.
But the fact was, yes, I am absolutely serious. Look at what they achieved with the embargoes and the massive sanctions that they had against them. They had one of the best health systems in the world.
Exactly.
And this was with virtually no help.
Free the country.
No, Cuba at the time, back in the 70s, they had a better health system than America. It's just the fact that it obviously deteriorated.
What year is it now, though, buddy? What year is it now?
And invented. No. The fact is that because they have embargoes, they have sanctions. They're not allowed to go and buy new equipment and buy the new technologies or actually.
Why don't they create it? Why don't they create it?
What I'm saying is because they don't have the facilities, because you have to get parts, you have to get bits that you cannot just make out of thin air from your own
Are you
country.
telling me that there's not countries? Are there not countries that trade with Cuba? Are there not countries that trade with Cuba?
Very few. Very few.
Okay, so there are.
That's why they have 70-year-old. They literally have cars from the 70s still running. In
no,
Cuba.
they have cars from the 50s, bro. Get it right.
Yeah, exactly. They still have cars from the 50s because of America, because of what America did to them. It wasn't because of them. It was because of the outside forces of capitalism.
It's never the country's fault, is it? It's always other countries'
not
fault.
in the case of Cuba, because if America had left Cuba alone, have allowed them to trade freely with the rest of the world, Cuba would be a very different place.
With nukes on their soil pointed right at Florida.
Well, there you go then.
Okay.
There you go. And now you're blaming Cuba for America's embargo upon them. It was
no. Okay, Banksy, calm down. Calm down and let me ask you. You think it's okay that Cuba, who doesn't have technology to actually build a nuke, but takes it from Russia and puts it on their soil,
exactly like Israel did, exactly like Israel, and yet Israel has never faced one
Israel
single
didn't have
embargo
technology
or
for
sanction
nukes.
from the United States.
You're claiming that Israel doesn't have technology for nukes.
Israel didn't build their nukes. America gave them their nukes.
Unfortunately.
Can I just say that the only person or the only nation to actually drop some nukes is America? So
it's
what relevance is that? What relevance in that? It actually stopped the Japanese and got them out of China from mass genocide.
Look, I'm not talking about who dropped nukes on who. I'm not here to blame game here. I'm not playing that game. I'm just saying to you that if you'd allowed Cuba to be free the way, or to be free and open to be able to sell and trade and buy those essential minerals and materials that they need to build their infrastructure, I will guarantee you Cuba would be a very different place.
And I guarantee you that if England and America,
and you snub your nose about how they haven't improved.
If England and America didn't stop Germany from expanding, then they would have had the resources to conquer all of y'all and the whole world possibly. So yeah, there we go. You have one end of the spectrum and you have the opposite end of the spectrum.
All I'm saying is we will never know the real story of what could have happened with Cuba. But Cuba, I don't consider it necessarily socialist. I consider it actually more of a semi-benevolent dictatorship. Again,
of course you consider it something that it doesn't consider itself.
No, but what I mean is it wasn't really ran. But I'm not saying socialism works, by the way. I don't believe socialism works. I believe that if there was true fair capitalism, that would probably be better than true socialism, because human nature doesn't coincide with true socialism anyway. We are inherently greedy, selfish creatures. But what we have in the United States, what we have in Europe, is not capitalism. It is crony capitalism, which is built on the colonialist, imperialist past of which they benefited from. So they simply took that and built on top of it this crony capitalist system, which America again expanded with their own economic imperialistic moves anyway. America, don't you guys think America is an empire? You are deluded. America absolutely is an empire.
All I hear is no true Scotsman fallacy added to it. Economics. That's all I hear.
No. This is what every. This is what I mean. You argue for an Ayn Rand style of capitalism, but you actually are faced with a crony capitalistic system of America, and you're
you're the one kind of inventing your own terms here. If we're going to talk sensibly about socialism and capitalism, we need to make sure that we're using the same language, or otherwise we're just going to be talking past each other. So,
do you consider America to be a truly capitalist system?
Dude. If we're going to let's just use an orthodox, normal definition of capitalism. Capitalism is an economic system based on private ownership of the means of production, where the means of production means things like companies, okay? And whereas socialism is a political and economic theory of social organization which advocates for the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned by the community. So, like, when you gave your definition of crony capitalism, where you said that corporations influence government, that doesn't actually violate capitalism, because even if those corporations can influence democracy, those corporations are still owned by private individuals
No, but
because
those
they're owned by
corporations,
shareholders.
no, but those corporations use socialistic systems in order to force competition out. So
How
they
are they
privatize
socialistic?
the profits and they socialize their losses. That is exactly what the banks did in 2008, where they pushed when the governments had to bail them out. That's not capitalism. When a government has to bail your company out when you fail at it, when you fuck it up. That
I
is
would
not
agree, Banksy.
capitalism.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that, but the fact is, it was a loan, and I don't agree with them.
It's a
Hey, let me
loan.
finish,
It's a
because I'm
loan
agreeing with
given
you.
to
I'm
you by a
agreeing.
socialist system.
I'm agreeing with you, please. I'm just saying it's a loan, and I don't agree with it, but they did pay the money back. It's just like if you want to know about true capitalism, what about the US government going under and that JP Morgan stepped in and actually gave the government a loan? That's really like true capitalism, if you ever want to talk about it. Somebody with their own private investments being able to pay for the government's expenditures and get money off of it to build a business even further.
You
So
honestly think JP Morgan gave that loan to the government without having some kickback off that? You honestly
of
think
course
they
he got
did it
his
of
of
the
course he got
goodness of their heart?
interest. Of course he got the interest. I never said he didn't.
No, it's not the interest. They don't give a shit about the interest. It's the fact that they bought their government. That's what they did.
So if you ask me for $20, okay, and I say, okay, I'll give you $20, but I need you to go to the gas station and pick me up some cigarettes, and I also want my $20 back. Are you saying that that's an unfair arrangement?
No, it's not that. It's the fact that I give you $20 and then I tell you one day I will ask a favor of you. And that day you're going to show up and fucking cough up the favor. But that favor could be anything and at any time that I choose. That is a mafia style loan where you will owe me something big in the future. That's what these corporations do.
After he did that, he had to conspire with he had to conspire with Carnegie. He had to conspire with the oil tycoon. His name is leaving me right now. But they had to conspire and try to buy a presidency. If the government was so much in debt to him, why couldn't he just get the president that he wanted to elect? Why did he have to spend massive amounts of money with two other of the richest people on the planet at the time to try to push their agenda? It's because what you're talking about is more conspiracy. Now, do I doubt that there are kickbacks and favors for people who do certain things for the government? I wouldn't doubt that one bit. Look at Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Global Initiative that they had going. But to act like it's universal and that capitalism is the cause of that, it's ridiculous. It's just like how I pointed out that you would say that Venezuela was a crony socialist country, and you would blame that the biggest problems of Cuba are from outside nations. And when I asked you why can't they build their own technology, you say because they have an embargo. I said they don't have anybody that they trade with. You say of course they do, but just a few people. Well, those people have resources, so why can't Cuba bring up its own economy? If communism and socialism is so great, it's actually communism and socialism is based off the concept that you don't need other nations, that you just need the workers inside of your own nation to work, and the system will flow perfectly because they own all means of production, which means theoretically in the communist system, such as socialism also, the production means will always go up because you have people who are always in need.
Okay.
Sorry.
Hang on.
1 second.
Why so? All right.
Oh, sorry, Jesma. You know what? Yeah, I've heard people cutting you up. So let me let you speak, and then I'll give a quick announcement.
All right.
Actually, let me do the quick announcement from now. We've got about 10 more minutes left of the show, so I would really love to, free up some room so we can have some other voices in the last 10 minutes. And family members, okay, we've had over 300 people tuned in. Can we get some likes, please? Let everybody know that you're watching Science TV and you're here to support us. All right? Please like, share, and let us know. Go ahead, Jesna.
Family, okay, I want to say that say this to why so. If, for example, go back to 18th century Great Britain, right? And you own the factory, and it's sort of like a wool factory where they make little coats and stuff, and what they used to do back in the days. And you're the owner of the factory, and then there's a lot of other little children that you need to employ who have no experience of how to do anything because they were colonized by other countries. And then when they come into the big boys field, they're working in the factories. Who do you think is going to have more power, more experience, and more influence? A country that has just taken its flag and it's only risen its flag for like, I don't know how long was it back then, 30 years ago? Or somebody who's the big guy, who's the big boss, who's in charge of you and makes the calls and, you know, has the resources, that's been having its flag for like 2,000 years.
Well, in America, we have a saying that I don't have to know how to do my job to tell you how to do yours. So, I mean, but if you're trying to say that because there was already a factory of people who have been working there, who have been training there, who have been spending time and generations possibly, passing on knowledge.
Young, small children that have no experience. Like, symbolically, it's the countries that have just put their flags up and are new. It's not a lot of people that are working in those factories because there's certain types of areas in those factories where only small children were employed because of their size.
So are you saying that a country goes to another country, colonizes it, takes it over, however you want to phrase it, and then builds a factory, and then there's one person from the country that invaded, colonized, however you want to say it, that is the leader, and that the people of the country that was colonized, invaded, whatnot, they have to start? Is that where you're going with this conversation?
I wanted to say it's just that these small children, yeah, that were employed back then are fresh into the realm of like trading and business or whatnot, right? That they used to have back in the days that only just took their flag, like only just risen their flag 30 years ago, compared to somebody who was like America, I don't know, like 200-300 years ago, Britain 2,000 years ago. How are they going to compete with those parties who's somebody who's only had their flag for like 30 or 40 or 60 years?
Oh, so you're talking about when a country is actually founded? How are they going to compete?
When a country is only just founded and is not like.
What about like once again? Sorry, but once again, look at South Korea. Okay, South Korea really didn't exist as its own country. Okay, because that's where the Korean War, the Korean conflict started. Okay, in the 50s, it was because they wanted to unite Korea as one communist country. So then the Western powers essentially split it up, the peninsula, and there was a conflict, a war. And even though it's still to this day a declaration of wartime, look at what has happened with South Korea. They created their own flag just within this past century, and they're in the top 20 nations across the world as far as life expectancy, low mortality rate of infants, of technological advances, of institutions such as colleges, hospitals, and such. So it's totally possible. It would just depend on who is running your country, who's running your country, and to what benefit are they running it?
But what if you're in a situation where the powers that be do not want you to succeed because they necessarily don't have an interest in your country succeeding? Rather, you will only succeed if they need you. Like North and South Korea, they need South Korea because.
Well, really, I would argue that no country should want any country other than their own country to really succeed.
Well,
in capitalism, it does. Well, no, I'm just saying, like, if you look at capitalism does have the philosophy that other people, if other countries succeed, they can bring more trade.
Why so? You've spoken a lot. Let some other people talk now, bro.
All right.
Yeah, can I say something?
Yeah.
For me, I would say that I come from Portugal, yeah, from a country in Europe, a so-called capitalist system. And down there, you have a lot of people starving, you have a lot of homeless, you have a lot of problems, economic problems. And this is a capitalistic country. And I would say what you all forgetting to talk about is all the politics that's involved in all of this and why some nations do well and other nations don't do well. For example, you have Africa, the richest continent in the world, and yet you look at the poverty down there is immense because of the powers that be that are keeping Africa down and keeping other countries down in order for them to come up, and they're using everyone else's resources and oppressing other nations. So you're all forgetting to talk about all of this, which is really influential in other nations. And this is one of the main reasons why some nations do really well in this capitalist system and other nations don't do well.
Saying that certain countries, certain other systems are like good. So for example, for Portugal, where you're from, the system of capitalism isn't really good for your country. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's not working because of the EU. The EU's got a big influence on these other countries and Portugal. Before the EU, Portugal was doing relatively well. But once the EU come into action, they installed the euro currency, it all went downhill because we've got people in the EU deciding the laws and they're deciding the economic policies of Portugal and of the nation. So you no longer have individuals that are doing that.
Yeah,
That's
because
true. That's true.
The European Union is not capitalistic by any means.
What if I told you it was created by people from the right wing? So the blueprint of the EU were made by Nazis in the year 1942.
Can you repeat that again?
The blueprint for the EU to be created and formed was created by Nazi leaders in the year 1942 about forming a European state, super state that follows a federal system in that sort of threshold.
Yes, but Nazis were a socialist party, so it wouldn't be right wing. Necessarily just right wing because they were socialists.
How so?
The Nazis were socialists. Hitler was a huge socialist.
Like,
Hitler controlled the means of production. That's the reason the Volkswagen is called the people's car.
Nazi is an acronym. Nazi is an acronym. It stands for the nationalist, the German National Socialist Workers' Party.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So I mean, yes, they were right wing.
Capitalism.
Sorry, go ahead, TJ.
They have been right wing in certain aspects, though.
Yeah, yes, that's true. But they were left wing, also more so left wing. They just had right wing racist ideology, but all their economic policies and international policies were strictly left wing.
Okay, so were you saying that, was it during Adolf Hitler's time that you were saying that, like I said before, the Nazis, where they got their money from was from,
from their own selves, essentially. Now they did, of course, they did take on loans, but that's the point of socialism and communism, is that the means of production is supposed to be produced by its own people, and that they have a share of it, which causes individual wealth as a community.
Hold on. Did the Nazis take loans from the Federal Reserve?
Yes, they did take loans. I'm not denying that, but what I'm saying is
no. But it's key. Federal Reserve, yeah. No, wait. There's nothing socialist about taking.
But the Federal Reserve is private, innit?
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing socialist about taking a loan to fight a war for a socialist purpose from a private organization who essentially you booted out. It doesn't make no sense. is a crazy position to take. How do you justify that?
The US federal system is an actual private thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm talking to YSO, by the way.
No,
how do you reconcile the socialist? Because you said the economic model was socialist, right? However, that doesn't sound socialist to me. Taking a loan.
Okay, so you don't think that loans are socialist?
No. It's who you're taking it from.
Oh, so there's the separation. So they can only take it from socialist people. Now, who's to say that a bank that gives the loan, that the president of the bank, isn't a socialist themselves?
Are the Rothschilds socialists? Have they ever been?
How am I supposed to know? I'm just answering your question. I'm answering your theoretical with another theoretical.
That's fine, but you're an American. Yeah, that's fine, but you're an American, so you know the history of the Federal Reserve, right? So you could very well tell us the story and explain how America sold itself to the banking system, and then we can go back and rewind, and then we can rejoin the dots that you're trying to actually sever completely. So tell us the story. Tell us the story about the Federal Reserve and how that was instituted in the United States.
Well, I mean, the Federal Reserve is essentially created after it was created to try to limit stock falls, okay, and depressions. You there?
I'm still there. We're all
okay.
There.
So in theory, the concept was that.
Actually, hold on, let me just stop you. So I've got to stop you already. You said that the Federal Reserve was created to stop depressions, right?
In theory.
When was the? How soon after the Federal Reserve was instituted? Was it
like 7 years? No, like 13 years. Something
right.
Like
so do you believe that still was the purpose of the Federal Reserve's creation, or is
I said that was in theory the purpose of it.
Whose theory was that?
All the politicians that pushed it.
All the politicians that pushed it. What about the ones that said it was the worst mistake the American people could have ever made?
I mean, I would say that the gold standard, moving away from the gold standard, could be up there also. There's a lot of mistakes that every country has made.
Yeah. But let's not gloss over. You keep doing this, bro. We're going deep into detail. This is what I said to you at the start. We're going into detail, and then you completely disregard the detail to go back to some kind of.
I don't get your detail.
No, you do. We're on the same page. Yeah, and you're just leaving the page.